I will start by giving you a little bit of a background on the course on which that I revised this quarter using specification grading. It starts 120C, which is the last course in a 3-course sequence. It is an upper level undergraduate course in mathematical statistics. It has two sessions of about 100, 110 students. The students are very heterogeneous. Some of them are pursuing a degree in data science, some come from quantitative economics, mathematics, computer sciences, but also the arts. And I think one time I had some students studying film or something. So as I taught this class in spring 2020 and 2021, I was able to realize that there is quite a bit of heterogeneity among the students in terms of how much and how comfortable they are with math and calculus. And that poses some challenges, which is why I was very excited to learn about a different way to assess students. And so I participated in the summer boot camp, and the first task that I did was redesigning the course was to identify what were the learning outcomes for this course. And initially, I started very strong-minded, thinking that the students were supposed to know everything, how to prove different theorems and concepts, and then that led me to 36 learning outcomes that were for me equally important. After discussions with the coaches in the boot camp, I realized that was actually quite of a lofty goals. I think that the next presentation is actually discussing how to, we all went through this process of trying to reduce the learning outcomes. And so as I thought harder about what I wanted the students in this course to have learned and acquired at the end of the quarter, I could identify some learning outcomes that were more important than others. And I thought about these learning outcomes in a broader way. So I identify what I call essential outcomes and general outcomes. And my idea was also that these essential outcomes could distinguish among the different levels of math comfort there are among the students. At the end of the quarter, for me, it's important that even the students that might not be able to prove theorems, if they were able to implement some of the notions or the topics, the most important topics that are covered in the course, then they should be able to pass the class. And then the students who are able to actually prove and do the math derivations, those students were maybe the students that would get an A or an A+. And so that's what the essential outcomes and the general outcomes are trying to get at. So this slide here is showing the list of essential outcome and general outcome that I came up with. And as you can see, they're very broad and they are not really, they don't necessarily map to specific questions that you could have in a quiz. So once I had established the learning outcomes, I used them to determine grades. And as I said, my grading principle was that I wanted the students at the end of the course to be able to understand the overall ideas and the underlying concepts. And that was what would allow students to get a passing grade. And then any other additional information, ability to derive proofs and to remember formulas is what would distinguish the C's and the B's from the A+, the B+. I also wanted to be transparent with the students. And so I provided the students with all the information. So I gave them the learning outcomes of the grade bundle as PDF that were posted on Canvas and that the student could download. I also gave them a tracker that is updated every week that will allow them to understand how much what learning outcomes they have mastered throughout the quarter. And so this is the grade bundle. This is basically what students need to acquire to get a C-, a C, a C+. And as you can see, there are the different essential outcome and general outcome. And so, as I said, the essential outcomes is what is important for students to have to pass. And then the general outcomes are accessory information that is required for students to get to the higher scale in terms of grades. How are students assessed in the class? So I decided to have 3 quizzes and a final project that is going to be done in pairs. Each quiz is graded as binary, and so each quiz covers certain essential and learning, essential and general outcome, and each essential and general outcome is just graded as mastered or non-mastered. The quizzes, since I didn't want to be in this the first time I implement specification grading, I didn't want to put too much on my shoulders to learn all at once, and so I didn't want to mess with Canvas. And so my idea was that I will do everything through old school spreadsheets. And so the quizzes are taken by the students in class during lecture time and are done on paper. I did not allow students to do the quizzes online. And if a student does not acquire certain learning outcomes, they can retake a quiz by paying 1 token. So to keep track of the token, I asked the reader of the course to develop a Google form where the students fill and basically put their information, and they ask to spend a token to retake a given quiz. There is a total of 3 tokens that students can acquire in the quarter, and tokens are acquired by students by submitting homeworks. And so I always allow for the possibility that the student might not do all the homework in a 3-week period. And so to get a token, a student has to submit 2 homework out of 3 every 3 weeks. So to keep track of how this class was going, I developed this Excel spreadsheet that basically had the main topic that I was planning to cover in the class. This is just a snapshot. Actually, the spreadsheet goes on. And then what topic I was going to cover in each week, when the quiz was going to be taking place, what learning outcome was the quiz covering. And so this is what I developed before the quarter started. And then as the quarter progressed, of course, I fell a little behind. So this is the actual now version of the daily schedule, where I color in green every topic that I managed to cover in that lecture. In gray are the ones that I didn't manage to cover. The yellow is the one that I actually asked the TA to cover in the discussion session. And then, as you can see, some of the essential outcome initially were only assessed in one of the quizzes. As I was grading the quizzes, I realized that maybe just one opportunity to assess that the student mastered the essential outcome was not enough. And so some of those essential outcomes I actually also reassessed in quiz 2. The frequency of the quizzes is, as you can see here, the quiz 1 is in week 3, quiz 2 would be in week 6. And then I allowed for 10 days for the students to go over their quiz and understand what they did wrong, and then try to retake the quiz. Students can have information, will have an understanding of where they are in terms of the learning outcome when we return the paper quizzes back to them, but they can also access that information online. So we have a Google Sheet that gets updated every week with the token balance, and it also gets updated after every quiz assessment. So the students can know what learning outcome they have mastered and what they did not. And so here there is some just quick snapshot of, this is the token balance that the students can see online. There are the student ID, and then they can see how many tokens they have. And then this is basically the essential and general outcome, and green is when a student has mastered the outcome, and red, of course, is when they did not. This is, of course, is just, some of them are all red because we have not yet assessed them. So in terms of the results, I think the students seem very enthusiastic when I first introduced them to the idea of specification grading for the course. I see there is much more engagement and desire to do well, and many students decided to retake quiz 1 even if they just miss one general outcome. What is interesting is that there is a lot of interest in the students in trying to get the tokens, and I think they take it more as playing a video game. On the plus side, I'm not receiving any emails about grades and regrading things as I used to have in the past. But there is a lot of interest in trying to actually really learn in the material. And then, given that I'm running short of time, I think that one thing that I learned that I am noticing is that because there is so many quizzes and quizzes retake that happen during the course of the class, I have to be also much more essential in my teaching. And so in my class, I typically focused on giving the main ideas, giving the main points of proofs, and then moving the details to PDF that I post online on Canvas or that I record on videos. In terms of grading, it seems on a first superficial level, it would seem that we have much more to grade because there are so many more occasions for students to submit work, but actually the questions are typically graded very fast with this binary grading. And finally, I wanted to thank Will Howitz for being my peer coach and guiding me through this process of redesigning the course, and Fanny for all the help that she gave me with the Canvas page, and all the members of the faculty community for providing their feedback and for allowing me to learn from them.